sex offenders. This story is from my stint at Female Prison. I was a surgeon at the time and wasn't directly involved, but had to deal with some of the aftermath. It was later in the evening, maybe 8 or 9 p.m. A female inmate was complaining of feeling dizzy and nauseous. The officers working the pod got on the radio with an inmate medical emergency. The officer and another one escorted the inmate up to the medical facility. The nurse on site began taking the inmate's vitals and was able to determine the inmate's blood sugar was low. The nurse told the officers that the inmate needed a sandwich or some sort of snack to get her blood sugar back up. I'm not sure why the nurse didn't give the inmate a glucose tablet, but she didn't. Anyways, typical protocol would be to grab a sandwich out of the kitchen and give it to the inmate. There was a handful of sandwiches left overnight for situations like this. Instead of doing that, the officer went to the yard office where his personal lunch was and got his Subway sandwich that he had brought in for himself and gave it to the inmate. The inmate obviously ate it, but she was eating it. She was complaining about the sandwich having jalapenos on it. You may ask how we found out about all of this. Well, one officer that came along had a handheld video camera. The camera would be used for emergency situations such as fights, assault, and sometimes medical emergencies. The officer with the camera recorded the entire interaction with the inmate to include her complaining about the jalapenos. So that is one of the many I can't make this shit up and would like to hear some of yours. That's so funny. Literally being sent to the nurse's office for blood sugar, getting a sandwich, and complaining about the sandwich, all while being in jail. Okay, next one. I have 2. I started a riot technically first day on the job and broke my wrist from it, but the I can't believe it involves shakedowns. Note, I was a 19-year-old male when I started corrections with an extremely conservative Christian household upbringing, so corrections was a strong dose of reality. Doing shakedown in the female dorms, some of you might already know where this is going. We're going through and finding stereotypical contraband, like a hooch, modified MP3 players that were broken open so they can access the batteries to start fires for their homemade rolls, jerry-rigged tattoo guns, a cell phone or 2, some weed, etc. A good haul overall. Our soup actually turned off the plumbing before commencing the shakedown to prevent the women from flushing anything. But I open up one inmate's bunk, lift up her mattress, and find a rip in the seam. Prime location to stash contraband. I reach in and feel around and feel something squishy and a little shorter than a ruler. Oh my god, this is what I think it is. I pull it out and it's a plastic bag with wadded toilet paper everywhere. I start pulling the paper out, wondering what the hell is in the bag. I felt something solid and pulled it out. It was a homemade dildo. I forgot what was used for the outer coating. I think a type of Durag. It was coated with Vaseline, but stuffed with used bloody tampons around a makeshift couple of razor blade handles to serve as a handle. It was glistening and wet and soaking. I literally had fluids start running down my hand and arm before I realized what the fuck I was looking at. I almost threw up right then and there. I just tossed it in her evidence section. I told her soup, I've got to disinfect. I just touched a biohazard, kind of sheepishly. Ever since I got special gloves to wear when we did female mental health issues, started screaming at her from his cell. Not his usual kind of ranting either. He normally went off about government conspiracies and trackers, but this time he was locked on her, blaming all blonde hair, blue eye for the state of politics. Things escalated quickly. He came out yelling and closing the distance. Before she could react, the inmate she was talking to stood up and put himself between them. Then two more inmates stepped in, forming a barrier and talking the guy down while she backed off. The wildest part, the unit officer on duty, a brand new CO, sat at his desk and did nothing the entire time. She was stunned when one of the inmates told her, "At least you know we'll protect you, because they won't do shit." She walked out of there with a completely different mindset. I've never seen her at a loss for words. And then one person commented, "If you treat the inmates with common decency and respect, then they will do stuff like that." So true. If you're not an asshole, why would people treat you like an asshole? I mean, some people can just be dicks, but nonetheless. Okay, let's do a couple from road trips. This one is just give me your best, you can't make this shit up. Story from the road. I think it's a lot of like hitchhiking. I kind of skimmed through some of them, but I haven't actually read any. This one says, I have a funny one from last night, but I'm sure some of you old heads have some wild ones. I slept in a field last night, a rather large field, overgrown grass, creepy crawl-eyes. I don't know what a crawl-eye is. The remnants of past denizens. No idea what that is either. Point is, most people aren't comfortable wading through. The night is winding down, just around 10 o'clock. Some people drive by shouting their lungs out, "Smokey, come here boy, Smokey, it's okay." They do their rounds along the rest of the field and return, this time much more methodical. For 30 minutes they shout for their beloved pooch, and at a certain point I have to readjust my body. One of them spotted my movement. Smokey is out there. Rejoice. With newfound energy, they continued their search, and every movement I made rekindled that flame. That family shouted into the void until well past midnight. Life is weird like that. Sometimes what you think is your stubborn family pet is actually just a homeless dude trying to sleep. Okay. Some of these are pretty long, so buckle up. I was in Beaumont, Texas, and was trying to catch a ride. Some ladies pulled over. It's about 12. The only thing she's wearing is a XXL Pro Club. She said, I don't know what that is. She says to wait a minute while she puts pants on. I'm assuming it's a shirt. I apologize if you hear that truck. It was awfully loud. She's 62 years old. Looks like she spent about 63 too many in the sun, and was most definitely a crackhead. Sounded exactly like the cross-eyed dude number 51 from The Longest Yard. So right off the bat, she says she'll drive me to Louisiana, but also asked if I was alright if she smoked crack. I said, yeah, I guess. I just wanting the ride. Anyways, I get in, and she tells me before we hit the road, she needs to buy some crack. Again, I said sure. We pull up to this ghetto-ass crack house, where there's two black dudes getting haircuts in the driveway, and I immediately was like, oh god. She proceeds to buy her crack and calls one of the dudes a hard R. As she gets back in the driver's seat, I for sure thought we were going to be fucked. We leave, and she asks if I wanted to drive so she can get high, to which I reply with, yes, of course. So we get to driving and talking, and she puffs and puffs away. My goal is to get to Florida, and she supposedly had been looking for someone to travel to Florida with. Coincidence. So we get through Louisiana, and by this time, it's getting about dusk. She stops to get pizza and buys you from the Dollar understand what that means, but we'll keep going. We filled every seat in my buddy's early 90s hatchback and drove 40 minutes from Akron to South Canton, around Sugar Creek, which is considered Amish country. We sparked the King Philly, our terrible name for a stuffed blunt back then, around 11:45 p.m. By 12:45, the four of us were struggling to even finish the shitty weed cigar. Then suddenly, out in the middle of nowhere, Amish Farmville, we saw tail lights about a quarter mile ahead. They were swerving all over the place and then stopped all at once and turned sideways. We pulled up on a trucker who had just been in a likely alcohol-related accident. He missed the fork in the road and turned his semi sideways up this little hill. Now the funny part here, and the you can't make this shit up part, was that his flatbed semi-truck was carrying about 10,000 chickens on the way to a slaughterhouse. We got out of my buddy's car and there were chickens everywhere. Chickens running around looking for last-minute freedom. Some were just bodies and ones with missing limbs flopping all over the road and the grass hill the semi flipped on. So we get out of the car, stoned as fuck, I might remind you. Two of my friends go into survival rescue mode and go check the driver, who was knocked out in the cab. They climb the flip truck, manage to wake the driver, and pull him out of the cab. Meanwhile, myself and my other friend just sat there and stared at this insane situation, stoned out of our gourds. Our friend got the driver out and he was somewhat conscious, talking about how bad he fucked up and had been drinking. The chickens were still running about everywhere. Then people started coming out of the surrounding houses. Amish people. They all came out, whole families, but they didn't check on the driver or the situation. They started picking up the chickens that were still alive and running them in handfuls back to their houses. We waited with the driver, all this going on around us, for about half an hour until we saw lights and heard sirens in the distance. We remembered that we had to have a smoked blunt and other drugs in the car. We took off after making sure the driver was cool and never looked back. One of the craziest situations I've ever been in, and I was newly homeless. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, maybe we'll do a couple more. Hitching through Texas, and me and a buddy got picked up by your typical traveling couple with a box truck who happened to be going to a wedding in the woods somewhere around Biloxi, Mississippi. The whole affair smelled like a small rainbow gathering. The free love in the air took over our driver, and he ended up. Oh my god, okay, 1 second. The whole affair felt like a small rainbow gathering. The free love in the air took over our driver, and he ended up blowing a dude to the begrudgment of his girlfriend who caught him in the act. Obviously, they started arguing, and at the climax, driver proceeded to stick a 10-inch knife in his own thigh. Took a while to convince EMTs and the police that yes, he did stab himself. All in all, they made up, and we did travel more with them. Really great people, honestly. Not the craziest thing to happen, but till this day, me and a couple buddies will use the expression, sometimes you just gotta suck a dick and stab yourself. What the fuck? Got picked up by a butch lesbian funeral director in the Australian outback on her way to pick up a body from an Aboriginal community 3+ hours off the main highway. Hers was a 4x4, even had a snorkel for wet season. She was leaving the profession after that pickup, said she This guy has two stories. I'll read his. Me and another dude finally get a stack train out of the SLC going south. Other dude on the train gets spotted by a fuel truck driver, and the driver stops and talks to him while he's on the train. We roll out 3 hours later. Lo and behold, the fucker stops at the first crossing, right there in front of the SLC. Fuck. Boots on the blast radio traffic. Shit, I think to myself. I don't like that story, I don't get it. Okay, let's do this one instead. This is a long one. I was just a home bum not long after I became homeless. One night I was sleeping under an overpass between the steel beams. Further down was another guy that had what seemed to be Tourette syndrome. Nice guy, but he would yell out random phrases throughout the night. His verbalization tended to have a self-deprecating character, as if something born out of a volatile family environment. Sometimes with defensive and sometimes with apologetic, self-hate motives. It took a while to get him to open up and talk to me because he didn't trust people's reactions to his verbalization. A really cool guy when he did, and quiet, normal outside of his tics. He had a little Jack Terrier that he only trusted him. He deserved better. One night around midnight, this big tall guy walks up to the 60-foot concrete embankment and asks me if I want a PJ as he reaches over and pats what he thinks is my crotch area through my comforter. It was actually my hip, but my lower body was rotated. I rolled my body just enough to keep my left leg free, to sweep his legs out from behind his knees, and got a good grip on his left shoulder with my left hand, which he perceived as a friendly posture. I'm small enough that I would have been screwed in a straight-up unplanned fight. If I had to send him on a 60-foot tumble down a concrete embankment, I wanted to make sure it was as uncontrolled for him as possible. I didn't want him to be able to turn his body the way he wanted if it came down to needing to send him packing 60 feet down the concrete embankment backwards. I then started giving him a speech about how he could proposition anybody he wanted, but going hands-on crossed the line. I said I couldn't get away with that with a woman and that I needs to respect the same boundaries or there will be hell to pay. He glances down towards my feet with my knee visibly bent, took his legs, and glanced up at my hand on his shoulder, and apparently realized for the first time how vulnerable the position I put him in was. The embankment was so steep that climbing it essentially required going up at an angle. He left without looking back. It could have been scary, but I was very confident of my tactical advantage, and given my measured response, my legal defense if it turned ugly. Wow, what a story. Anyways, wow, okay. I think we should end on a different one, actually. One more. That one just was kind of awful. Like, sad. My first time hitchhiking long distance, I went from Flagstaff, Arizona to Arcata, California. I lived in a downed redwood tree in Redwood Park outside town for a few months during the winter. I would busk by the Alibi and Toby and Jack's every day to get food and beer. This went on fine for a few months, but eventually I wanted to get a job and get indoors for a bit, so I headed down to Eureka. I did not know anything about Eureka at the time. I signed up for a room at a Christian shelter and get my $300 a month assistance check. I eat at the soup kitchen, make friends with the home bums, yada yada. My point is, Eureka is sketchy as hell and holds about 1/3 of the world's tweakers. Is that true? Jesus. I running like hell out of the dark alley, being chased by something on the other side of the street.